Absalom quickly organized a full-scale conspiracy for the throne. He forced his own father, King David, to flee for his life. While David was traveling through Bahiram, Shimei began walking along a mountainside.
Why should this dead dog, Shimei, curse my lord the king? Let me go over, please, and take off his head.
What happened next, Nathan?
Well, David wasn't so quick to act.
Leave him alone! Perhaps Jehovah will see my affliction and will restore goodness to me.
Mephibosheth. His grandfather had tried to kill David. When David became king and asked Mephibosheth to the palace, he must have wondered why.
Here's your servant,
Mephibosheth. Do not be afraid, for I will certainly show loyal love to you for the sake of your father Jonathan. And I will return to you all of the land of Saul, your grandfather. And you will always dine at my table.
what is your servant that you have turned your attention to a dead dog like me?
David, Saul, and their army returned from striking down the Philistines. The women of all the cities of Israel greeted them with a celebration of song and dance. The women began singing, "Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his tens of thousands."
The only thing left to give him is the kingship.
From that day on, Saul was always suspicious of David. Jealousy controlled Saul and ruined his friendship with David and with Jehovah. David was popular, good-looking, physically strong, a talented musician, and he had been anointed as the next king.
Here is my eldest daughter, Merab, and I will give her to you as a wife.
Who am I to be son-in-law to the king?
Other men would have used this opportunity to boast or to promote themselves. Some just couldn't understand why David wouldn't take more credit.
David, you're the finest warrior we've ever had. Haven't you earned the right to accept some praise?
But who really trains me for battle? Who rescues me from the sword? Jehovah is my rock. He should be praised. What is any man next to him?
David was sick. Absalom saw this as an opportunity to seize power. Like his father David, he had many gifts. He was born into a wealthy and powerful family. He turned heads wherever he went, and he relished the attention. Men would come to the city gate, so the king would hear their legal case.
If I was appointed judge in the land, every man with a legal case or judgment could come to me, and I would see he receives justice.
You are from the royal house, my lord.
My mother, too, has royal blood. It seems I was born to lead, but God will do what's best for his people.
Absalom seemed to be interested in the people who came to David, but he was only interested in himself. The Ark of the Covenant was finally brought to Jerusalem. David and the people danced and celebrated.
Has he forgotten he's king? Dancing like a common fool. How glorious the king of Israel made himself for the eyes of the slave girls of his servants, just as an empty-headed man.
My celebration was before Jehovah.
Michal did not love others as much as she loved herself. David was faithful to Jehovah for decades. But then he let his guard down, and he coveted a married woman.
Bring Bathsheba to me.
David and Bathsheba committed adultery, and she became pregnant. To hide their sin, David secretly ordered Bathsheba's husband to be killed. And he hurt the God who had done so much for him. On the run from Saul, David's men came to see Nabal, whose sheep they had protected. They asked only for what Nabal could spare. David didn't wait to react.
Everyone, strap on your sword!
David took action, but he didn't seek Jehovah's direction. Still, Jehovah intervened through Nabal's discerning wife, Abigail.
My lord, let the blame be on me. It is Jehovah who has held you back from incurring blood guilt and from taking revenge. You will have no regret in your heart.
Nabal was senseless, but he was still David's Israelite brother, and he deserved to be treated lovingly. David had become provoked, and Abigail rescued him from making the situation much worse.
Praise Jehovah, the God of Israel, who has sent you this day to meet me.
The Amalekites kidnapped the wives and children of David and his men. And his men became very bitter.
Our families were never safe here. You led them to their death!
Life for life, David! You should be stoned!
Patience, please. Jehovah may yet rescue them. We don't know.
David looked to Jehovah for help. David fought the Amalekites, rescued all of the kidnapped Israelites, and recovered all of the flocks that had been taken.
Jehovah protected us and gave into our hand the marauder band that came against us.
David could have given the spoils of war only to those who trusted in him, but he shared with all. It was as though they had never wronged him.
I've escaped from the camp of Israel. Many have fallen and died. Even Saul and his son Jonathan have died.
How do you know?
I stood above him and put him to death.
Teach all of our people this dirge for Saul and Jonathan. Saul and Jonathan be loved and cherished during their life. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war have perished.
Not once did David mention Saul's hurtful acts. To David, the assassination of Saul was an unrighteous act, and David could never rejoice over that.
Here, I am dwelling in a house of cedars, while the Ark of the Covenant of Jehovah is under tent cloths.
Do whatever is in your heart, for the true God is with you. But I had spoken too quickly. David.
Nathan. Go on, Nathan. What is it?
This is what Jehovah says. You are not the one who will build me a house to dwell in. David's son Solomon would build the temple. But David didn't feel sorry for himself, and he didn't try to push ahead without Jehovah's blessing. David knew God's will, and he rejoiced in it. Later, he gathered a vast amount of materials so his son could build. David had been pursued ruthlessly by Saul. He and his men faced hunger, fear, and threat of death.
It's Saul. Today God has surrendered your enemy into your hand. Let me pin him to the ground.
David could have ended his trial then and there, but he was a man of love.
Do not harm him. It is unthinkable from Jehovah's standpoint that I should lift my hand against the anointed of Jehovah.
despite all that Saul had done, David left the judging to Jehovah, whom he loved and trusted. David was on the run from Saul. His friend Jonathan, Saul's son, hatched a plan to protect David. But could David really believe Jonathan? After all, Jonathan was second in line to the throne. Only David seemed to stand in his way. Saul had betrayed David. Might Jonathan do the same? Could David put his life in Jonathan's hands?
May Jehovah do that to Jonathan and more if I do not disclose it to you and send you away in peace.
And I swear never to withdraw loyal love from you and your household.
May Jehovah be between us forever.
David loved Jonathan, and he believed him. That trust saved David's life. Abner had been chief of Saul's army. He pursued David in the wilderness and supported David's rival after David became king. So why was Abner coming to see David?
My lord the king, make a covenant with us. We now support you as king, because Jehovah has promised us salvation by means of your hand.
I will make a covenant with you.
David trusted Abner and hoped that he would now remain loyal. But Joab saw things differently.
What have you done? You know Abner. He came here to fool you and to get to know your every move and find out everything that you're doing.
Be careful. You know the law. You must not hold a grudge, and you must love your fellow man as yourself.
Joab's distrust grew into vengeance. He later killed Abner. Those who hate expect the worst, but those who love never lose hope. When Jehovah chose David to be king, he had already rejected Saul. Even so, it wasn't yet Jehovah's time for David to begin ruling. Waiting wasn't always easy for David. He became a fugitive running for his life. Even his own men once threatened to kill him. 22 years had passed. Finally, he became king over all of Israel. True, King Saul and even some of David's friends abandoned him. But David endured it all. Jehovah had never abandoned David. So how could David ever give up his love for Jehovah? When David was anointed as king, he couldn't have imagined the tests that would come his way. But love helped him to face all of them. David saw that without love, we become jealous, get puffed up, behave indecently, look for our own interests, and become provoked. Love helped David to be patient, to be kind, not to brag, not to keep account of the injury, and not to rejoice over unrighteousness. Instead, love helped him to rejoice with the truth, to bear all things, to believe all things, to hope all things, and to endure all things. David faced many trials, but love was equal to all of them. When David comes back to life, he, like love itself, can live on forever.